Welcome to Daily Gossip. You will get daily Hollywood updates here. Remember to subscribe for the latest videos. The Hollywood legend himself, Clint Eastwood, has spoken. And when a man like Eastwood, who's known for his steely silence and timeless mystique, finally breaks that silence, the world listens. But this time, what pushed the iconic 95-year-old Oscar winner to speak up wasn't a new movie release, a public appearance, or a rare interview. No, it was outrage, it was indignation, and it was personal. Because someone crossed the line. Someone dared to impersonate the voice of one of Hollywood's last standing giants. Clint Eastwood has officially called out a so-called interview, published by Austria's Kurier newspaper, as entirely phony, and what unfolded afterward has rocked the international entertainment press to its core. The story begins with a quiet publication that almost went unnoticed, a supposed interview between Clint Eastwood and an Austrian journalist named Elisabeth Sereda, published in the pages of Kurier. It was timed suspiciously close to Eastwood's 94th birthday. The piece was peppered with quotes that felt, well, too on the nose. Eastwood was portrayed as slamming the current state of Hollywood, criticizing the over-reliance on sequels, reboots, and what the article described as soulless remakes. He supposedly longed for the golden age of filmmaking. And if you're familiar with Eastwood's past, it's not hard to believe that these statements could have come from him. But that's precisely what made it so dangerous, because none of it was true. None of those quotes were new. None of those words were fresh. And most critically, none of them were given to Sereda in a recent interview. In fact, Eastwood now says he hasn't spoken to her, or anyone from the media, for quite some time. And this wasn't just a little miscommunication. According to Eastwood, the entire article was fabricated. In a public statement issued to Deadline, he made it clear, "I have not spoken to any Austrian journalists. This interview is entirely phony." The gravity of those words, entirely phony, is haunting. Think about it. One of Hollywood's most respected and reserved figures, whose career spans more than 6 decades and includes classics like Gran, Torino, $1 Million Baby, and Unforgiven, is now being misquoted, misrepresented, and used without consent in a foreign media outlet. And he's not staying silent. He's fighting back. But the question remains, how did this happen? And more disturbingly, why? It turns out that Elisabeth Sereda, the journalist behind the alleged interview, had actually compiled and recycled old quotes from Eastwood. Some of them came from press junkets. Others were from years-old interviews given in completely different contexts. She arranged them, stitched them together, and presented them under the illusion of a brand new, exclusive sit-down with the actor. It's the kind of journalistic manipulation that, unfortunately, still finds a way to thrive in certain parts of the entertainment press. And it worked. At first. The article was published, widely shared, and celebrated by fans who believed they were hearing new thoughts from Eastwood as he approached his 95th year. But then came the backlash. Once Eastwood's team was alerted to the article, things escalated quickly. His camp denied any involvement. Publicists and longtime associates scrambled to set the record straight, and soon enough, Kurier was forced to admit what had happened. In an internal review, they conceded that the article had violated journalistic standards. Editor Martin Gebhardt publicly apologized and announced that Elisabeth Sereda would no longer be contributing to the publication. The article was pulled. The damage, however, had already been done. This wasn't just a case of misattribution. This was an identity theft of voice, an attempted hijacking of legacy. Clint Eastwood, a man who has built his name on authenticity, grit, and a no-nonsense attitude, had his carefully guarded reputation used against him. It wasn't just an article, it was an intrusion, and now the fallout is far from over. In Hollywood, reputation is currency. For Eastwood, whose twilight years are spent directing meaningful films like Richard Jewell and Cry Macho, this incident is more than a nuisance. It's an attack on his credibility. Eastwood rarely does interviews anymore, and when he does, they are intentional, thoughtful, and measured. To see his name and face splashed across international headlines without his consent is a violation of everything he stands for. The backlash also reveals something darker about today's media landscape. There's an increasing hunger for nostalgia. Readers crave the golden era of stars like Eastwood. But in the rush to feed that hunger, ethics are often thrown out the window. Journalists, desperate for clicks, sometimes cross lines that should never be crossed. And in this case, the consequences were swift. But this scandal has also led to some unexpected revelations. For one, it shed light on the broader issues plaguing entertainment journalism. The Kurier incident brought up the failures of the now defunct Hollywood Foreign Press Association, the same organization that had long been accused of corruption, racism, and favoritism before the Golden Globes were pulled from NBC. Elisabeth Sereda was previously linked to the HFPA, and some insiders say this controversy feels like an echo of that organization's unethical practices. The blurred lines between access journalism and propaganda are clearer than ever, and Eastwood's public denial may have inadvertently sparked a much-needed conversation. Fans have responded with a mix of shock, sympathy, and fierce loyalty. Across social media, hashtags like #StanWithClint and phony interview trended for days. Celebrities including Tom Hanks, Morgan Freeman, and even director Christopher Nolan expressed outrage at how easily an actor of Eastwood's stature could be misused by international media. For many, it's a wake-up call. If this can happen to Clint Eastwood, it can happen to anyone. Meanwhile, Eastwood himself has remained true to form, quiet but commanding. Aside from his brief statement, he has not granted any follow-ups. But insiders say he is furious, and that legal action is not off the table. Some speculate that this event may push Eastwood to speak more directly to his fans in the future, perhaps through social media, a platform he has largely avoided throughout his life. Could this scandal push the legendary filmmaker into a new era of transparency? And let's not forget the timing. Clint Eastwood is still working. His latest directorial project, Juror 2, is set to be released later this year. The film, centered on a man serving jury duty who realizes he may be responsible for the crime, is a perfect Eastwood tale. Dark, introspective, and morally complex. It's already generating Oscar buzz. But now, with this interview scandal hovering in the background, there's a new emotional texture added to the narrative. Eastwood, the eternal cowboy, may once again be forced to draw his metaphorical gun, not in the dusty towns of the Old West, but in the glittering chaos of modern media warfare. And just like his characters, he won't go down without a fight. This story is still unfolding. The media world is watching, and fans everywhere are rallying around one of Hollywood's most enduring icons. So what comes next? Will Clint Eastwood pursue legal action? Will the entertainment press finally face a reckoning for its most unethical members? And will fans ever trust international publications again? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. Clint Eastwood is not a man to be misquoted. And when he says something is phony, you better believe it's phony. Thank you for watching Daily Gossip. Don't forget to subscribe For more emotional, shocking, and dramatic celebrity stories, deep dives, and breaking news, stay tuned and remember, Hollywood never sleeps, and neither do we.